Do you know how to make really big pots? Of course, you can just use a lot of clay, but it's difficult to center and it's very stressful on your body. Today, I'm going to make a flower pot to cover up this ugly plastic pot. So it's going to be wide and high. I'm going to need a lot of clay for that. So a better way to do that is by using sectional throwing. I'm going to show that to you today. I already made another one yesterday for another pot that have a slimmer but higher size. So it also needs to be wide but much taller. I did that in 2 sections. Today we're going to do this one. It's even more of a challenge because it's much wider and it is not as tall, but it's still tall enough for me not to do it in one piece of clay. I will probably make it in 2 or 3 sections. And also, one of my friends that requested this wanted it to go in the top. And I said, oh, but if it goes in the top, it needs to be even wider because it still needs to be able to fit. So where it's the most narrow, it needs to fit this, and it's about 30 centimeter wide. You can see it's almost the entire width of the bed. So I actually need to make the base almost the size of my bed, throw it up, maybe a little bit out, and then in at the top to create more of an elegant solution. I'll see how that goes. I'm going to start out with a clay ball of about 4.5, maybe 5 kilo. That is, at least to me, relatively easy to center. If we get much above that, 10 kilo, 15 kilo, I think it's very difficult to center. This one should go relatively easy and fast. So now we have the basic ball centered, but of course I need the base to be much wider to fit this pot. So that's going to be the first stretch. And to do this, I mostly use the palm of my hand, have a little more weight in that. I have this kitchen sort of, I don't know what it's called, spatula or something. It is used for kitchen. I grind off the edge so it's a little bit rounded here. It's nice for really big pots like this to compress and even out the bottom. It's very cheap compared to most pottery tools. So let me just see how the size fits. And this actually looks pretty good, at least to begin with. It needs to be a little bit wider when we go up the side, but it's a good start. And just to make sure that the bottom is okay, yeah, it's actually pretty thin. So this is my base. And now I need to pull the walls as much as I can with this first part of the clay. And it's not going to be so high, but it's going to be enough for the first level. it's a start. I actually ended up making the button a little bit too thin. I'm usually not the one that makes things too thin, but in this case I did. It's only a couple millimeters, 3 millimeters. That's too thin for a big pot like this. So how can you fix that? Well, because it's still wet clay, I made this dice of fresh clay, and I will add that to the button. So first, I want to make sure that it's soft and even, and I may even scratch it up a little bit with my fork. This way, there's a better chance that the clay will attach. I'm just gonna wet it just a little bit. And I'm also gonna scratch the bottom of my dice. Even though it is fresh clay, it's just to make sure that it sticks better. Then I'm gonna push it out in shape before I start throwing on it. That way, there's a better chance that it will stick to my button. I'm going to make sure that I compress this really, really well, because I certainly don't want any bubbles or anything in there. It's going to separate what used to be 2 layers of my button. But now, we check it out. Yeah, it's much better. It's about 1 centimeter or so, and that's what I need for a pot like this. Now I'm going to try something that I'm not very good at, but using ribs on the inside as well as on the outside. But it is a good exercise, and it does give you some advantage when it comes to shaping a large pot like this. And just to be sure, I'm just going to measure again, and yeah, this is plenty of width. So that's good so far. Just want to strengthen my walls, compress them a little bit to make sure that they can sustain the next level of clay that we're going to add. I don't want to make them any thinner than this because it is going to take the load of the next portion of clay, the next section. I'm going to flatten the top like that. And I will make a small groove into this. Let me just see. I think I have a better one for that. This wooden tool. I'm just gonna make sure the edge is wet, nice and soft. I'm gonna make a small groove here. It's just gonna help me when I position the next section. Because then I have this as sort of a guide when I put the next section on. And now I need to dry it a little bit, because you could also wait, until the next day, but I want to finish this now. So I'm going to dry it with my blow dryer, and that will make the walls stronger, of course, and we'll be able to take the next part. And by the way, I'm mostly heating up this part and the lower part, not so much up here, because I still want this to be relatively wet so it can connect with the next section. If you're in doubt if it had enough strength, you can try and wiggle it a little bit, and it should be sort of hard to move, it's sort of a good sign that you have enough strength. We're just going to give it a little bit more. So that's it. And now I think we're ready to take this off and make the next section. In order to be able to put it back exactly the same position, I like to make a mark on my bat because the bat may not be 100% centered. So when I take off this bat, I will look for one of the pins, and there's a pin here, and I will simply take a marker, if I can get it apart here, my wet hand, and I will make a mark here, and I will also make a mark on my bat. That way I can put it back in the same position. Now I'm ready to do the next section. I'm using a little less clay because this is what I had left in my bag and I was too lazy to go down in the basement and get a new one. But I do like to add a little less clay for each section to not put too much load on the first one because then it can collapse. So try with this. It's about 3.5 kilo. And this section needs to be turned around and put on top of the other. So I'm gonna throw it all the way down to the wheel head. We basically just need a wall, except I will leave a little more thickness down here, which is gonna be the top, because if I have it too narrow here, there won't be enough to stick to the bat and it can just go off the wheel. I hate to do that, so I'm just gonna center this. Of course, before I can finish this part, I need to measure the exact width of the first part so they match. But I know approximately how wide it needs to be. So it's funny how much easier it feels to center 3.5 kilo when you just did almost 5. Even though to many people 3.5 kilo is a lot, but you get used to it. So now I think I want to go and measure my first section just to make sure that I don't make it too wide. So this is about the size we're aiming for. So it's 1 centimeter short or something. That's fine. And as I said, I need to get all the way down to the wheel head and just trying to push out as much of that clay into the wall as possible. But as I said, I will keep a thicker part in here because otherwise it's going to lose grip of the bat. So let's just see where we are. Yeah, it's almost right. Needs to be a little bit wider, but that's easy enough. It's always easy to make it wider. It's much more difficult to make it more narrow. I'm just going to scrape off clay from the inside. Oh, that way. And Let's check again. Yeah, it needs to be about 1 centimeter wider. But again, it's easy to make it wider. Yeah, getting very close. And now I want to make the top, instead of flat, I want to make a little bit of a hook, so it will hook into the groove that I made in the other pot. Check, hopefully last time. Yeah, this seems good. Maybe it got a little bit too white. I'll see, just push it in a little bit here. Yeah, I think that's as perfect as it gets. And now, similar to the other pot, or the other section, I want to dry it up a little bit. First I'm going to remove the slip, and I'm going to dry it. And again, I primarily want to dry the middle part, because this part is going to connect to the other part, and the top part, or bottom part, which is going to be the top part, I need to extend. So if it gets too hard, then I won't be able to throw on that. So let me just see. Yeah, it's stiffened up okay. A little bit more, and then we'll turn it around. Before I remove this from the wheel, I just want to wet the very top a little bit, because this is going to connect to the first section. And also I'm going to scratch it up just a little bit. And the scratching and the slip or the water is going to help make sure that they connect really well. So that's it. I'm going to remove this part, if I can get it off. There we go. And put this aside. Now we have to remember to put this back in the same position. And there's a mark here. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a mark, and there's a mark on the bed here. So this is the position we're going for. And when you cover the holes on your beds, it's always a little bit difficult to reposition them, but in this case, it was okay. And it still looks fine. So I'm just gonna add a little bit of water or slip to the groove. And I'm gonna use my scratcher. Where did I put it? I put it here. A little bit of scratching here. Again, just to make sure that we have a perfect connection between the two sections. Because this is one of the challenges with sectional throwing, is that it is of course a weak point between the two sections. And if it's not completely glued into each other, it's going to break apart when you fire it. So now we're ready to turn around the second section. So when you turn it around, you should not do it slowly, because if you do it slowly, it will glide, it will warp. So you basically have to do it like in one go. I usually like throw it up and turn it around, something like this. And it sticks. And now we have to position it, and you really just have one go. And this, luckily enough, looks good. I usually just knock it a little bit, not too much, that can make it collapse, but just to make sure that it's well connected all the way around. And now and not before now. We need to liberate it from the bed. So I usually put my chest here to support it, so I don't push it out of position, and then of course hold the wire close to the bed. There we go. So now we have the two sections. So first I want to just make sure that it's well connected all the way around, and it's relatively well centered. So now it's time to glue those two parts into each other. And I go very slowly in the beginning with this. Sometimes have to wet the top a little bit so I don't get stuck here. And then the different ways you can do it. Sometimes I scratch it in like this with a rib. That can be good to just make sure that there's no air holes and that it's well connected. And so I usually do something like that. So, turn a little bit too fast. So now you can start massaging it into each other. And you want it to feel and look and act like it's just one piece of clay when you're done. Because if there's any cracks, if there's any air holes, if there's any any misconnection left, this is where your pot is going to break. So go slow and just slowly act it into each other. And you see, already now, it looks like it's one piece. That's exactly what we want. And of course, you also want to make sure that the same thing applies to the inside. I usually use 2 ribs again for that. So 1 rib on the inside to smooth it out, and the other one on the outside to compensate. Now sometimes I think I have usually one of 2 problems. Either where they connect, there's a little bit too much clay. In this case, it's almost even. Sometimes there's too much clay. Sometimes there's too little. If there's too little, you can roll a coal and attach it around so you get some more clay. If there's too much, you can either even it on the outside like this, and then there will be a little bit of a bulb on the inside, and you can trim that away. Or if you hate trimming on the inside, even on a large bowl like this, you can push this extra clay to the outside, and you can wet trim it away. Right now, I think I'm just gonna try and make the wall even, and see if we can get away with it. It actually looks that way. So maybe we don't need to trim the inside at all. So now we have a lot of extra clay up here. That's deliberately because I didn't want it to detach from the bed. So we have some extra clay here, and of course I want to stretch that out because we're not done yet, and we want to create sort of an even wall thickness. So here I'm just going to throw like I would normally throw. Just going to pull up the clay. Sometimes it's going to be a little bit messy on the top, and I may need to cut it clean. But I'll just start out by expanding it, pulling it up a little bit. And as you see, I go pretty slow. But one thing you have to remember when you're doing this is that it's a big pot, so it takes some time to get around, so don't move your hands too quickly. Making a big bowl like this more narrow is really complicated, but it is possible. You need to use as much of your hand surface as possible. Otherwise, you're just going to push it out of position. Yeah, let me just check with the pot. Yeah, it actually needs to be a little bit wider because it's also going to shrink. So we're going to take it just a little bit out. And I can already see now that we are going to need one more section. It's going to dry out the bottom because, I mean, I do add some water to the top, but I don't want too much water to just soak in there. It will weaken the bottom. And so I soak that up now and then. So let's see if this is better. I can actually take it the other way. And yeah, this is much better. Now we have at least 2 or 3 centimeters, and it will shrink. So we do need that. And if you take it down, you can see it actually does cover the pot now, but we want it to be a little bit taller. So I think I'm gonna add one more section and see how that goes. So again, I'm gonna even out this wall first. I just want to double check. Yeah, that's fine. So again, I'm gonna make a groove for the next section. So I think that looks okay. I will dry it up a little bit again. I don't want to film that. It's a boring part. It doesn't work so well on video. So I will get back to you in a few moments, and then I will throw the next section. Now we're ready to do the last section. And once again, I'm going to use about 3.5 kilo of clay. So let's go ahead with that. When you press out a clay ball like this, it tends to dry up a lot more than when you're just doing normal centering and pulling. So keeping a sponge in your hand can prove really helpful. This one have to be a little bit wider in the connecting part than the other one. But then I wanted to go out a little bit further and then in. So this is what we're looking for. So it needs to be wider than this. And again, going all the way down to the wheel head, at least in the inner part of it. Just gonna check. Yeah, it just needs a few more centimeters, but I think the lower part is good here. So once again, just gonna scrape off whatever small layers left in there. Like that. Now we're gonna even out the last part here. Now I'm ready to pull the walls. Something like that. Now just check the width. Oh, it needs to be quite a lot wider. Which is fine. Again, expanding is easy. Extracting or make it more narrow is very difficult. Let's see again. Yeah, now we're getting very close. Maybe half a centimeter or something. And I think it looks good here. Inside. And again, I just want to sharpen the edge a little bit so it fits into the groove that I made on the lower part. Yeah, this is exactly the size we need. So now I just want to scrape off the slip before I dry it up. Like this, and on the outside it should be okay. Like that. And just a final check. Yeah, that's perfect. So now it's time to dry it off. There's a little bit of water in the bottom. Just gonna get rid of that. Now it's time to dry it. And again, I'm not gonna waste your time on the drying process. So I'm gonna get back to you when we have the first section back on the wheel. Oh, wait, one thing. I wanna show you what it looks like inside, where the first part of it, the middle part of it, is right down to the wheel head, and then just keep a little bit to have some attachment to the bed. So now we have the base section back on the wheel. I'm going to do the same thing as I did first time. I'm just going to wet it a little bit. Could also use some slip, but I think this is going to be good. I'm going to scratch it. I think that's fine. And I'll take the other section. I did actually forgot to scratch this. It shouldn't be a problem, but I'll just scratch it a little bit nevertheless. It is soft enough here to connect. So just a little bit of scratching won't hurt. You can never get too good a connection, but you can definitely get one that is too weak. So again, we're just gonna turn it around and try and see if it fits. Yep, here we go. Yeah. Knock on it a little bit. Yeah. I think that's good. Again, cut it loose. It's gonna get more and more difficult to manage the whole pot, of course, but it should go okay. There we go. Cut it loose. And here we go. And if we slowly turn it around, it looks relatively even. So that's a good beginning. Again, I think I'll have to stand up, but I'm just gonna scratch the two parts together. I'm gonna support it from the inside so I don't accidentally push in the wall. It's just gonna make everything more difficult. And again, I'm just gonna wet the top a little bit so I don't accidentally get stuck on it and pull it out of shape. And be careful not to do anything too fast, because again, you have to remember you need to get a full round before it affects the whole pot. But you see, already now, it looks like it was always just one piece. So now the question is, how much do I need to go out before I go in? We'll have to look at the bucket again, or the pot from the inside. And of course, it needs to be wider than this, otherwise it won't get in. So to begin with, we need to widen it more. But first, I also want to fix the inside. I know this part is a little bit difficult to see, so I'm basically doing the same thing as I did on the outside. So now it looks really good, both inside and out. So now I'll need to expand it a little bit, and for that I think I'm going to use my longer rib, a homemade wooden rib, and it's just nice to have this long one when it's a long surface. You want to have a continuous flow on. So let's see how the opening is now. It still needs to be wider. It's going to be a bit of a challenge. Let's see how it is. Yeah, see, we're almost there, but I need to take into account the shrinkage rate. So we still need to get it at least a couple of centimeters wider. Sometimes if it gets too dry on the inside, I simply use a sponge in my left hand. See how it is? Yeah, now at least it can get in there, but that's not enough, because again, we have the shrinkage rate to deal with. So in order to stay, I mean, we need this to be wider. So let me just think. So now it is wide enough. I got a few centimeters, but if we want it to have sort of a feel going inwards, we need this part just below to be a little bit wider. Let's see if this is still wide enough. Sure, it is. So I think if I sort of straighten this out, it should be good. I can cut away a little bit at the bottom to get a little more elegant shape to it, I think. I think I need to cut off the top because with all the sections, it's become a little bit too uneven. I'm just gonna cut away, I think, 0.5 centimeter or something. Yep, there we go. And now we have completely even top. And let me see where we are. We could go in just a little bit because we have like 3-4 centimeters. So now comes the tricky part of seeing if I can narrow in the top just a little bit. I'm not sure I'm going to succeed with this, but wish me luck. I think I got it in just a little bit. Maybe I can get it in a little bit more. Oh, yeah. That's actually quite good. I'm actually impressed by myself. Let's see if it still fits. Yeah, I don't want to make it any more narrow now. So now it's just a matter of the final polishing. I will do some trimming on this, so I'm not done with this, but I think the basic shape is good. It is a chunky pot. I just want to shapen the rim a little bit here. And flatten it just a little bit. Leather strip to just smoothen the top of the rim. And again, clean the inside so don't soak it too much. Yeah, I think that's it. I'm going to fitness too, so this is my pre-fitness. I think it turned out well. It's about 10 kilos of clay, and I will do a bit of trimming, and I will maybe get back to you when it's done, and I'm going to glaze it. So I hope you enjoyed my struggle, and I think it turned out really good. Let's see, final touch. It goes in, and it goes very deep, so it's completely hidden, and that's exactly what I was looking for. So it is a big pot, but I think it turned out nice. After a bit of trimming, I decided to add a little bit of texture. There's a border that I added with a roller texture pin from MKM Tools, and then I carved out these 3 lines. And I think with the kind of glaze that I'm expecting to use, I think this will look awesome. If you like this, please subscribe, share, write a comment. Maybe you have ideas for better ways to do this. But again, I like how it turned out. And if you want to see more like this, come back next Sunday. I have a new video coming out every Sunday at 5 p.m. Central European Time. So until then, I hope you have a wonderful day.